I received an email the other day, and in the email it said, the shortcut to anything you want in your life is to be and feel happy now. Now this brings up a really interesting point, and this is something I'll be talking a lot more about through this forum, and that is this. There is very often within the mainstream and even the esoteric and metaphysical self-help systems the assumption that you, which I call the player of the human game, as opposed to what I call your expanded self, which is the real infinite being you, who's managing everything that's going on in your life from behind the scenes. There tends to be an assumption that you, the player, are driving the bus and are in control and is determining what's happening to you in your life. And there also tends to be an assumption, although a lot of people would argue me to death about this, that you can think your way, or decide your way, or intend your way into expanded states of consciousness. And I'm here to tell you that from my experience and the experience of other people playing the Phase 2 game, the truth with capital T's is you cannot do that. You cannot think your way into expanded states of consciousness. You cannot willpower your way or self-discipline your way or intend your way into the true joy experience, into expanded states of consciousness, into higher consciousness, enlightenment, whatever you want to do. There's a path that you must travel. There are a series of experiences that you must have that what I call knock out the cloud cover that's preventing the sun of who you really are, which is the true joy, which is the happiness, which is the enlightenment, whatever term you want to use. But you've got to knock that out. You've got to go through some sort of a journey, some sort of a process to expand to the point where you have a direct experience of the true joy. But it doesn't come from just wanting it. It doesn't come from saying, okay, I'm going to be happy now. I'm going to be happy now, you know. I'm going to make a decision, and from now on, I'm just going to be happy, you know. You can't do it. It doesn't work. Now, there are people who, if you study the literature and history, who awakened, so to speak, and spontaneously had some sort of an experience where they found themselves in an expanded state of consciousness. And they were not aware of any specific path or journey necessarily that they took. It was a spontaneous kind of a thing. And that does happen. And from my experience, sometimes people who say that's happened to them, it really has happened to them, and sometimes they say it's happened to them and they're in this very expanded, joyful place, and they're not really. It isn't true, and it's a game or it's an act. Or they've kidded themselves. It's not necessarily an intentional deception. But that does happen. But the game that I choose to play, the experience that I choose to have of moving from, let's call it, ordinary consciousness, Phase 1 consciousness, into the true joy experience in Phase 2 is a journey where it unfolds over time, where you have slowly but surely, in a sense, you expand and you move from the old state of consciousness to the new. And as you're doing that, you can really appreciate the expansion journey. You can really appreciate how you fooled yourself into thinking that you weren't happy and you weren't enlightened and you weren't in expanded states of consciousness in the first place, because you always were. You are right now. We just convince ourselves in Phase 1 that we're not. And so as we expand into a direct experience of who we really are, more appreciation and enjoyment and pleasure than I can possibly communicate to you comes from doing that slowly but surely, a piece at a time, so that you can really enjoy that expansion process. I compare it to if you love a particular food. Let's just say, you may not be a meat eater, but I'm just going to say steak. If you really love the taste of steak, or a particular kind of cake or something for dessert, you don't want to pick up the thing and shove it all in your mouth and eat the whole thing at once. You don't want to do that. You want to take little bites, and you want to chew them slowly, and you want to savor the taste of it instead of just shoving it all in and having it all be over in an instant. Same thing if you really love champagne or some kind of a fine wine or drink or something. If you were to buy an $850 bottle of champagne, one of the finest bottles in the world, you don't want to guzzle it all down and drink it all like that. You want to pour it into the glass gently so that the foam, you don't lose any of it. It doesn't overflow over the glass because it's so precious to you. And you don't want to guzzle the glass down or take the bottle and guzzle it. You want to slowly sip it so that you can thoroughly enjoy each of the sips. Same kind of a thing with the expansion process. Now, it's just a choice. As an infinite being, you can move from ordinary states of consciousness to expanded states of consciousness any way you want. But I'll tell you from where I sit, it is so much more rewarding, and I'll have more to say about this in future posts. There's so much more enjoyment and pleasure that comes when it's spread out over time, and you can thoroughly enjoy the expansion process as well as appreciate how you got yourself so restricted and limited and convinced you're the opposite of who you really are in the first place. So, a couple of things I just wanted to share with you today.